Okay, so I thought about this a little bit, and I think the way we want to handle having multiple sizes of resolutions, right? I just realized I did a couple experiments. I'm gonna back off on them. Where is it? Yeah, so really the only thing I did was move this up here, but we can just ignore that for right now. So since we are making a game that takes place on a grid, right? So you can think of it like graph paper, right? We want to go ahead and just say that we have some number of grid units per like on the screen, right? So this is not terribly different than how we have um, our text editor set up, right? So in fact, actually, we can go ahead and look at this, right? So if I hold space down all the way, I have that's 33. Or sorry, that's 27. And if we go up right here, so this is 0, and then down here, oh, it's weird. We aren't quite fitting on the bottom, but we have like between 14 and 15, right? So what I want to go ahead and do is say that we have grid width and grid height, right? So let's say our grid width is 32 and our grid height is going to be 18. And so part of the reason I'm choosing those is because they're nice multiples. They fit into 16 and 9 very well. So, anyone who's using a widescreen monitor or a widescreen TV, our grid width and grid height are going to fit very nicely into that, right? Um, so then, in that case, I think we should be able to say that our pixel size is going to be our screen width times, or sorry, our screen width over the grid width, right? So open our calculator here. We can see if we have 1600 by 900 and we take 1600 divided by 32, we're going to have 50 pixels. If we do like 920 divided by 32, we're going to have 60 pixels. Or 60 screen pixels for one of our screen pixels in our game. If we have like 800 divided by 32, well, we're gonna have 25, right? Um, Etc. And you see that also fits in nicely because 900 divided by 18 is 50. What is it? 1080 divided by 18 is 60, etc. So we're going to have square grid units, right? Um, Maybe in the future we aren't going to want square grid units. Since we're going to be dealing with text, we might actually want things to be sort of rectangular, just like we have in our text editor right here. You notice this is certainly not a perfect square. Um, so yeah, but that really isn't associated with the height and the width of our grid. That's going to be the height and width of the cell, right? So we could still have 32 by 18 for our grid. We would just have things squished a little bit, right? So let's go ahead and make sure that we compile. Okay, we have pretty huge. pixel right there. Why is that? So, okay. Well, let's just check real quick. So the size of our pixel, again, it's going to be, um, yeah, our pixel size is 50. So, yeah, okay. So I think that's the issue. That's why I was thinking about this incorrectly. Um, so I guess kind of scratch what I just said. That isn't a super great idea because we don't want our pixel size to be exactly the size of a cell on the grid, right? Because we want to fit multiple pixels into those grids, right? So we have our grid width and our grid height right here. And now what we want to say is what our pixel size is in relation to that, right? So we're going to have cell screen width, and that is going to be our screen width divided by grid width. And then we're going to have define cell screen height, which is going to be screen height over grid height, right? So that's what we're going to have being, in this case, it would be, 50 width and 50 height, right? Yeah. So now we want to say that our pixel size is going to be some ratio of that. So if a cell is going to be 50 pixels by 50 pixels, right? Something like, that. Then we want to say that our pixel size is maybe going to be, I don't know, cell screen width divided by 10, right? So that would be like a size of 5, right? So now if I go ahead and run this, we should get something a bit more reasonable, and it looks like we do. You see, we still aren't flush with the corners. I think that's because we might... yeah, we want to be setting up our sprite to be... Where is our sprite? So, yeah, right here. Let's go ahead and hop into this scratch pad right here. So we want to say that if our cell is 50 by 50 screen pixels, and our game pixel is going to be 5, game pixel size is 5, then let's see, we should define our width and our height as pixel size, right? Oh, sorry, no. It should be 10, right? So, because, we're going to want a width of 10 and a height of 10, right? So, let's go ahead and do that. And then when we do our multiplications right here, we're going to get 50, right? So I'm going to keep moving, and then I'm flush right there, and then when I do that, I'm flush against that. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and see if we can change this up. So if we do 800 by 450, right, we should get the same thing. Like we should, as in that's what we want, right? We see, though, that we really aren't. You see everything's kind of like pixelated like this. Or not pixelated, but there's those bars, right? And the reason for that, if we hop into our calculator, we're going to say that 800 divided by 32 is 25, which divided by 10 is 2.5, which is not a good pixel size to have. So trying to think what the best way to deal with this is. Like if we had 5 by 16, then it might be good. $1,600 is that's pretty small, though. I don't think we want our grid to be that small, honestly. I mean, if we did our pixel size like divided by 5, right? That would work for our basic resolutions of 800 by 450, 1600, 900, 1920 by 1080. So maybe we could go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and see what it looks like if it's too small. I mean, honestly, I think that's actually a pretty good size now that I think about it. Right here for our sprite dimensions, we're picking 10. I think we should actually be at 5 for that, right? Because if we're going to have 5 times our pixel size, and if our pixel size is, in this case, it's going to be 25 divided by 5, so 5. We're going to want to move 25 pixels to the right each time, right? So now that we have played around with these numbers a little bit, yeah, I think that's still probably pretty good. Yeah, so what we want to do is say right here that our sprite width for our player, because we want it to take up an entire grid unit, right? We want to say that it is going to be the inverse of this, right? And we can actually just go ahead and do this. We can say define yeah, I guess what we can actually do, we can just say define, I don't know, pixel scale. I think that should be fine. We'll say it is 5, and we'll say pixel scale right here. And then here we'll say this is pixel scale like that. And here we'll just do pixel scale although honestly here we don't actually, we can just move this by cell screen width, right? And then we could say, because again, the width and the height should be exactly the same, right? But we'll just do width and height to make it a little more clear. Because again, since our pixel scale is 5, if we have a width of 25 divided by 5, and we multiply, 5 times our pixel scale, or sorry, if we multiply 5 times our pixel size, we're just going to get back 25, right? Which is going to be the screen width. And just real quick, let's try 1600 divided by 32 is 50, divided by 5, which is 10. So, and again, if we went ahead and we took 10 times 5, we would get 50, which is just our screen width, right? So, let's compile. Looks like we are still moving appropriately. That's nice to know. And then if we go back up, if we change our resolution from, where is it? Let's do 1600 by 900. I don't know what kind of monitor you're on. It might be that this is too big, but we should get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. Okay, right, because here is going to be 0, it's going to be 30, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Okay, nice. And just for kicks, let's do 1920 and 1080. I'm going to go ahead and move this back up to the top. And yeah, we are flush. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, when I look at this, maybe it's a little big of a world. I don't know. As we start making the game, we'll see. We might be happier with 16 by 9, something like that. And just for kicks, we can go ahead and make sure that this works. So this will not work for an arbitrary resolution. So we couldn't, for instance, just say 1600 by 1200, right? There are techniques that we could do to get that to work. They would involve pretty big changes in how we render the game, so they might not be things that we want to do, at least for right now. Let's see if we do something like changing the screen width to 20. Did I forget to compile? Oh, well, yeah, okay, because here it's weird because if we have a grid that's 20 by 9 that's fitting into a 16 by 9, those grids won't be square, but we are saying that our sprite is square. So let's go ahead and keep it at 16 by 9 for right now. Again, I think as we start experimenting with the gameplay a little more, we'll start to develop maybe a better sense of what we want our grid dimensions to be. I don't know. Maybe we'll want maybe we want the grid dimensions to change or something like that. I don't know. That seems kind of unlikely, just for how I'm thinking about the game working. It would be kind of like a Zelda-style overworld thing, and you don't necessarily want that stuff to be changing. But now at least we have a situation where we can change the resolution of the game, and we aren't particularly unhappy with that. So I'm going to keep it at 1600 by 900. This is what I do for a lot of games that I work on because it's nice, the game isn't taking up the whole screen. I can still see the text editor, but it's a little beefier than at 800 by 450 where I kind of lose it. If you're curious why I made these macros using this pound define and I kept this as uint 32s, don't be curious. There's nothing really that fancy to it. This was just, I copy pasted this up here because I wanted to be able to use these values in the macros, so I needed to define them above where I'm saying what the macros are. And this way we have screen width and screen height as global values. I don't know, we might want to change that around a little bit in the future. Like maybe none of these should be macros. They should all be variables inside a struct. I don't know. We'll see. What I want to do next, though, is go ahead and change a little bit about how we're handling movement code. Because right now, it's kind of gross. It's just in this thing where we have our player position, but we're storing the player position in our pixels on the screen and not in our grid in the for the level or for the world that we're working on. So I think what we should be doing next is going ahead and playing around with that, so we can start actually representing the player's position in the space of the world and not in the space of the screen, right? So that'll be our next video.